Who's your commander?
Good luck.
Equip.
Move to combat. Resolves.
Thank you.
Now, before you attack
Does
me,
anyone have an answer?
well played.
Good game.
Welcome to the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel. My name is DJ, and we have more War of the Spark Legends to talk about. Today, we're breaking down God Eternal Oketra. God Eternal Oketra is 3 white for a 3/6 legendary zombie god. God Eternal Oketra has double strike, and whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token with vigilance. And when God Oketra dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it on top of its owner's library, third from the top. The first thing I'm impressed by are those stats. A 3/6 double strike is a pretty threatening attacker, but it's that trigger that's gonna make this deck run. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token with vigilance. That's huge! We could just build a white deck with lots of little creatures, and then suddenly we have an army of zombies to back them up. It's just so good. I'm imagining tons of creatures. Low CMC creatures too, so we can play God Eternal Oketra, and then maybe play 2 or 3 creatures the next turn, and then suddenly we're a huge, huge threat. One thing to keep in mind though is that without our God Eternal Oketra on the battlefield, our army of small creatures are just small creatures. So we need some level of protection, both for our board and also for our god herself. And finally, we might need some way to push through some damage because 4/4s in Commander, well, they're still good, but they're kind of weak when it comes to tokens because we're such a big format. So let's find out how this deck is going to be assembled. I think the first thing that we need to do is look at all of the creatures. We just want to cast creature after creature after creature. So the first thing I want to talk about is a flavor win. It's a non-creature, Oketra's Monument. 3 mana for a legendary artifact. White creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. That is a huge benefit. A mana rock in this deck is going to be really, really important. Oketra's Monument can come down on 3, and you can cast Oketra herself on turn 4. That's pretty good. Anything that can help us accelerate into our commander's strong. But whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. This is the kind of ramp we need, allowing us to play multiple creatures on the same turn. Maybe even our commander into instant zombie value by playing multiple creatures that turn. And the 1/1s this monument generates are not useless. We can use creatures in creature-based strategies. In fact, we're going to be casting so many creatures, it's not outside of the realm of possibility to think about something like Ronus's Monument or Bantu's Monument. I don't think I'm going to include it in my deck because, you know, flavor fail. But Ronus's Monument, you cast more creatures and then suddenly, you know, Oketra could be a one-shottable commander. Yeah, that's pretty strong. If our deck is predominantly creature spells, then we can slow down our opponents with Athalia. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. Vryn's Wingmere. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast, or even Nullstone Gargoyle. Whenever the first non-creature spell each turn is played, counter that spell. Although Nullstone Gargoyle goes against the strategy of having sort of lower end creatures, which let us chain them together and create more zombies. Nullstone Gargoyle might sit in our hand for a long time because it takes a while in mono white to get up to 9 mana. So we have some disruption on creatures. We should also put as much removal on creatures as possible. Bounty Agent destroys a legendary artifact, legendary creature, or legendary enchantment. Mungar of Corindor is an exile effect for any permanent, and Fiend Hunter is an easy removal spell for a problematic creature. These are solid cards in our format, and yet imagine if they come along with a 4/4 Vigilant Zombie friend. Yes! And finally, we can be supremely clever by casting creatures more than once. Cloudstone Curio lets us bounce creatures back to our hand so we can recast them and trigger more and more zombie goodness. And White-Mane Lion can just bounce itself over and over again. In conjunction with our commander, White-Mane Lion will let us produce as many 4/4 zombies as we have mana. These cards also have a surprising amount of combo potential as you start pairing together cost reduction effects or enter the battlefield effects. It's really fun synergies in this deck. Next comes my card draw category, and white has historically been abysmal at drawing cards, but they are pretty good at gaining value through creatures, and that's what we want to be doing, casting creatures. One of my favorite white cards is Ranger of Eos. You've probably heard me talking about the white Mole Drifter before. Ranger of Eos is a 3 and a white for a 3/2 and lets you search up 2 creatures with converted mana cost 1 or less. So in a deck that wants to cast creatures, this is a creature that searches up 2 other small creatures. This isn't even the only effect that can search your library for creatures. Thalia's Lancers can get a legendary card, Recruiter of the Guard can get another one of your small creatures, but I want to focus on the 1-drops that Ranger of Eos can grab. We have our attacking 1-drops, Sarah Ascendant, Walking Ballista, Hangerback Walker, and Mikaeus the Lunarch. Yes, all of these are fetchable with Ranger of Eos, and all of them are particularly strong and synergized together. And just imagine, each one of them could come with a 4/4 zombie buddy. Oh my gosh, I love it. But there's more with Ranger of Eos and more small drops to basically fill out this deck. We have Mother of Runes providing protection. We have Devoted Caretaker. Let me read this because it might not be one you're familiar with. It's a 1 CMC creature for a 1/2 cleric, and you can pay white and tap it to have target permanent you control gain protection from instant spells and from sorcery spells until end of turn. Devoted Caretaker is clunkier than Mother of Runes, but we do want levels of protection for our commander and our other key pieces in this deck, and giving protection from instant or sorcery spells can blank a lot of targeted removal in the format. And finally we have Weathered Wayfarer, a 1 mana 1/1 human nomad cleric, and for a white and tap you can search your library for a land card, any land card, and put it into your hand. That is card draw. This belongs in the card draw category. You can only activate this if an opponent has more lands than you, but come on, you're in mono white. Let's keep going with the card draw because we do have more. Bygone Bishop will generate us clues as we keep playing our creatures because we're going to be playing a lot of small creatures. Mentor of the Meek will also draw us cards over and over again because again, we have a lot of small creatures because we want to play multiple creatures in a turn, generate tons and tons of zombies. The next inclusion is some conditional card draw, but all sorts of card draw is welcome in mono white. Alms Collector is 3 and a white for a 3/4 flashy cat cleric. If an opponent would draw 2 or more cards, instead you and that player each draw a card. Obviously not as good as Notion Thief, but this one might actually be allowed to stay on the battlefield. And remember, lands are card draw too. Boreas Charger is a 3 mana 2/1 flyer, and when it leaves the battlefield, you can go searching for some planes. One might even go onto the battlefield. And Oreskos Explorer. Again, it's just a little 2/2 cat scout, but it can get lands into your hand if your opponents have more lands than you. And of course, we're going to have as much mana ramp as possible because we're going to want to chain multiple creatures together and cast Oketra as fast as possible. Burnished Heart can get us 2 lands, Court Cartographer puts a land on the battlefield, White of the Night Orchid again puts a plains on the battlefield, and Gold Mirror taps for a white mana. Actually, all of these are going to be solid at any point in the game. It can ramp us into our commander, or if played after our commander's on the battlefield, we'll generate a 4/4 Vigilant Zombie. Alright, so this is shaping up to be a solid white-weenie deck. We play a lot of inconsequential little kid cards for cheap mana, and then we start swinging in our opponent. One thing that's important though is that we don't have the traditional ways to create an army that other white-weenie decks have. For example, some of them have this massive influx of tokens because of cards like Finale of Glory is a new one that just came out in War of the Spark. And in a lot of other white decks, this would be really, really good. Same thing with a Planeswalker producing tokens like Elspeth Sun's Champion. Again, both of these cards would go in a lot of mono white decks, but this deck revolves so much around Oketra, our commander, that we don't want too many non-creature spells in it. Don't be afraid to play cards like this. They're still good cards in Commander, but they won't synergize as strongly with your deck. So we're not looking for single powerhouse cards that can suddenly get us back in the game. Instead, we need lots of synergy to make sure that our deck produces value over time. That's why the card draw category I previously mentioned is so important. We also want to protect what we have, so cards like Bastion Protector, protecting Oketra will be really, really good. Also remember, Oketra is a 3/6 double strike, so giving it +2/+2 and indestructible will make it a really powerful creature. Selfless Spirit can also protect our commander and our entire board, even our zombie horde that we create. And again, both of these are on creatures. That's exactly what we want. We could and should include other effects to protect our board. Unbreakable Formation and Teferi's Protection. Again, these aren't ideal because they're not creatures, and Teferi's Protection isn't ideal because it's $1 bajillion, but it is something that we might need to suck up and include in this deck because we really do need to protect the synergies that we've built. 8.5 Tails and Glory are another level of protection because they give protection. One thing that's also really great about these cards is that in the late game, they can turn aggressive, giving you protection from your opponent's board, getting tons of damage in. And finally, we have some big creatures that can help us rebuild if everything goes wrong. Emiria Shepherd and Sun Titan easily get things back from the graveyard. You know, for an aggressive deck, we've actually been quite passive so far. We've talked about ways for you to slow the opponent down with cards like Thalia. We've talked about removal on creatures, or ways to bounce or search up smaller creatures, lots and lots of protection and card draw and mana ramp and all this stuff, but what about the attacking? Well, one thing that's great is that God Eternal Oketra does the attacking for us, just creating huge zombies with no other purpose in life than to just smash in for 4. But God Eternal Oketra can also be really, really aggressive. And all of these little creatures, well, they wear swords and other cards very, very well. Sword of Fire and Ice, Sword of Feast and Famine, Sword of Light and Shadow. These are just some swords. You put them on Oketra and, oh yeah, double strike means double triggering. So with Sword of Fire and Ice, you get to draw 2 cards. Sword of Feast and Famine, untap your lands twice for all that instant speed value you got in this deck. Or Sword of Light and Shadow, getting creature cards back from your graveyard to your hand. And then cards like Sword of the Animist, again, that little bit of damage boost on your commander does a ton. And getting lands onto the battlefield are great. Sometimes I'll just throw Sword of the Animist in on a stupid creature and just swing in for no value just to get that land because it's totally worth it. And same thing with Mask of Memory. Again, if you deals combat damage to a player, draw 2 cards. Double strike makes this double effective. But again, I've talked about card draw and ramp on my aggressive category. Let's get big. Let's start taking advantage of flooding the board full of creatures. Cathar's Crusade, a 5-mana enchantment that makes your team impossibly big, especially if we're chaining together tons of little creatures. This just goes out of control. We could play Banalish Marshal. This is an anthem on a creature, so this is an anthem that could generate a 4/4 zombie along with it, pumping everything. And Giselle Goldmane. This is another big effect. Giselle doesn't do much if it's the only creature on the battlefield, but if you have a lot of creatures going on, then this activated ability of attacking creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures. Yeah, it's crazy good with first strike, crazy good with lots and lots of little creatures on the battlefield. And finally, if we are attacking, let's just bring in the Master Tactician, Odric Lunarch Marshal. We could also bring in Odric Master Tactician, but Odric Lunarch Marshal is so good. Do you know why? Because our commander has double strike. Just imagine an army of vigilant zombies, and then suddenly they all have double strike because our commander is so cool. Odric is just going to be solid, and with so many creatures on the battlefield, with so many great abilities, man, it's just going to take over the game. I believe that these are the critical pieces to make God Eternal Oketra, but the other pieces can just be whatever you want. If you have some great white-weenie creatures in your binder, throw them into this deck. Ultimately, God Eternal Oketra lets you take whatever white creatures you want, put them into a deck, and really turn them into something that's commander-worthy. And that's what I really like about Generals, is when they allow new decks and new freedom and new creativity in a place that wasn't really there before. I want to thank you for watching, and I also want to thank my sponsor, tcgplayer.com. If you click on the link in the description, that'll pull up a deck list and take you to their website, and you can see what little creatures I like the most. I also want to thank my patrons for supporting me. Thank you very much, patrons. And I also want to thank you for watching this video. I'm going to be coming back with even more Commander videos because War of the Spark's pretty good. It's pretty good. All right, everyone. I'll see you really soon. Bye.